So here it is. This is the long-awaited Kawasaki ZH2 review. And if you're ever so lucky to ride one of these, I'd suggest you bring your brown pants. Before we get into this review, I just wanted to say thank you to Monsterbike located in Drammen for providing me with this motorcycle. Alright, so for the basic specs of this motorcycle, it's got a supercharged inline 4 which is 998 cc's. This engine puts out about 197 horsepower at 10,500 rpm. The engine is, from what I can make of it, essentially the same as the one in the H2 from 2015, but it's been tuned differently to achieve more low and mid-end power. Now this particular bike has got some extra parts added to it. It's got Kawasaki frame sliders, tank pads, tank grips, RNG license plate holder, and of course an Akrapovic exhaust. Now this is what I would consider the performance exhaust of the two options you get from Akrapovic. This exact exhaust is where you lose the most weight and gain the most performance. I remember seeing the reveal of the ZH2 live and how much hate it got after the unveiling for its looks. Now personally I wasn't a big fan of the design either, so I get where people are coming from. But I don't know, seeing it in person, it didn't look as hideous as the internet said it was. Now it's not my favorite motorcycle design by far, but I appreciate what Kawasaki is at least trying to achieve here. They're definitely going their own direction with their lineup, which sets it apart from other motorcycles. One thing that I feel like they really nailed with this beefy design is that it tells me exactly what kind of motorcycle this is. It's one you absolutely do not mess around with. Now let's talk about what really makes this motorcycle so special, the engine. The power this engine puts out is just absolutely mental. And the wildest part is that almost no matter what gear or RPM you're in, you've got more than plenty of power whenever you want it. Yes, the engine does have a lot of brutality in it, but if you treat that throttle right, there will be no problem to just roam around town minding your own business. The beast can be contained or unleashed solely depending on your self-control. The riding position is quite upright, not unlike most naked motorcycles, but you will be slightly leaned over the tank and you get the same feeling of sitting in and beneath the tank, not unlike the Z900. Now, this being a naked bike, you will experience a lot of wind compared to, for example, a sports bike or a sports touring bike. But the slight aggressive riding position combined with well-positioned handlebars, at least for my liking, really helps to battle the wind when riding at highway speeds. The seat is definitely comfortable on longer day rides, but if you're planning on doing some serious touring on this bike, a comfort seat might be in your interest.
I mean, it does weigh, I think, 239, future Drakenhoff, can you correct me if I'm wrong? But, I mean, it's got like 130 Newton meters of torque, again, correct me if I'm wrong, future Drakenhoff, but it's absolutely mental, this motorcycle.
Despite the weight of the ZH2, I was really surprised over how well this bike handled when it first got up to speed. It feels extremely planted and almost no matter what I did, even when the supercharger wanted to rip your arms off, it felt like the bike tucked you in a warm and comfy blanket, telling you that everything is going to be alright. Overall, I just felt super safe and quite confident while riding the ZH2. If you're hitting up some twisties or just cruising on the highway, the adjustable Shoei suspension and the Brembo brakes really sets you up for a dynamic riding experience. Now, I've seen a lot of people complain about the Brembo M432s as opposed to not having the M50s. But in my eyes, the stopping power provided by the 432s should be more than enough for road use. I was actually really surprised over how well they worked.
This thing is like a missile in the corners. So planted, so incredible. I'm truly amazed over how well this motorcycle performs in the corners.
Like most premium motorcycle these days, there are of course a bunch of electronics. Now I can't claim that I'm experienced enough to tell the different systems apart, but here's a list of all the ZH2's systems. KTRC, KCMF, KIBS, KLCM, KQS, KECC. And in addition to that, there are also 4 riding modes and 3 power modes. To be honest, I was kind of intimidated by all of these K names, but mostly happy that they're there if I need them. The wheel control, or traction control if you will, definitely does its job, but it's not exactly a smooth experience. But it leaves the front wheel to kind of jerk up and down mid-air until you let go of the throttle, and it can come across as kind of abrupt. The quick shifter is absurdly smooth in lower RPMs, but when accelerating hard and shifting gears, there was an odd delay between the throttle cutting and coming back on. But overall, I have to say operating this motorcycle is just incredibly smooth. From the throttle to the gearbox, not to mention the engine. Most of this bike is so smooth to the point where I might even go as far as saying it might actually be a bit too smooth in some areas. For example, the gear shifter has a bit of travel time before it actually shifts gears, but you're not getting a very tactile feedback from the gearbox, letting you know if you've actually changed gears or not. I even found myself unintentionally shifting gears at times, because the shifter itself requires very little weight to operate. The ZH2 is definitely a premium motorcycle with a lot of great features. The whole bike feels super planted to the ground except for the front wheel when you really twist that throttle. It doesn't feel as much like a statement like the original H2 did back in 2015. It's become something more refined, something usable, and might even make sense in some people's eyes. I mean, the sound of the supercharger alone makes me want one.
Kawasaki, you have done something terribly fun. It's really fun, but on Norwegian roads it does not make sense to have this bike if you're planning on riding legally in any way whatsoever.
On a personal note, I could definitely see myself owning this absolute beast of a motorcycle. In fact, I enjoyed it so much that I would at times forget that I was making a review of it. But what do you guys think about the ZH2? Is it just ugly, heavy, or is it the ultimate hyper-naked motorcycle? Let me know in the comment section down below or hit me up at any social media. I'd love to have a discussion with anyone even remotely interested in motorcycles. Thank you guys so much for watching this little review, and as always, I will catch you in the next one.